Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, GM, everybody, welcome to our new time, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, Good for Bitcoin. We're looking to get Sean up here in a minute. I might play another song while we're waiting. Looking like Leather is ready to go here. So welcome to Good for Bitcoin. It's a weekly show we do every Friday now at 2 p.m. Eastern, where we recap the events of the week, talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. And we do have a lot to talk about this week. There was a lot of news, a lot of stuff going on. Sean, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, man. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
All right. Yeah,
Happy Friday.
Some sound. Happy Friday, man. My gosh, some of the weeks it's like, well, what happened this week in Bitcoin? And then some weeks it's like a month of stuff happened. So yeah, it's been eventful.
It has been eventful. It's been both eventful and uneventful. And Bitcoin was doing some crazy price action. It went, dipped below 60K on Monday, which I was surprised to see Bitcoin at like 59 something thousand. And that was just surprising.
It's so true. When I was first getting into Bitcoin, probably like most people, you're just so focused on price action. It's like the only thing that you're really thinking about, right? Like you're just opening up probably the Coinbase account and looking at it going up and down. But now that I've been in the space for a few years, there's so much more to be focused on and interested. And then, your X feed, whatever it is you're looking at for news, it's more than just price action. So the dip is like disheartening, but when you've been in it for so long, it's temporary. A lot of the price action is just totally par for the course, totally normal for summer doldrums. But my gosh, there was plenty of other things to be excited about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only reason that I really look at price is just to sort of gauge social sentiment. I think I've said this on the show before, but whenever I notice that there's kind of a dip in like overall impressions for the week or anything like that, I have at least something to point to and be like, well, it's kind of just like market effects, and
right.
And we'll bounce back.
Well, that's really fascinating to balance against. Is like overlay the two charts with each other. So, how do socials, those metrics, track with the price of Bitcoin, and what's the correlation?
There is a huge correlation. I don't know how to easily like chart that, but I can just tell you just from kind of the years that I've been doing this that there is always a huge correlation between price and just social engagement in general.
Well, speaking of price going down, could be many things, but I know one of the narratives this week was Mt. Gox repaying the $9 billion to various crypto clients. So a lot of people are expecting a lot of sell pressure, but to be honest, like if people who have been around since the Mt. Gox days, are they really going to be like pressured to sell right now when they probably have a long-term time horizon? So we'll see if it plays out.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, this has been something that I feel like this is like a piece of FUD that's kind of been around for a very long time, for years, right? It seems like anytime that like Mt. Gox moves some coins around or, goes from one wallet to another, suddenly there's just a dip in the market because people just get scared. This huge quantity, of coins. And 9 billion, of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash is obviously a lot of money, and that could certainly move the markets. But there's been everyone, that has had coins in Mt. Gox, all the early OGs have sort of been forced to hold over this long period of time. And I agree. I feel like, this cycle is sort of just beginning. Anybody that has been, here since the Mount Gox days has been through several, 4-year Bitcoin cycles. And there's just not a lot of reason why you would want to sell right now. Everyone's been just forced to hold for years and years and years at this point. So why not just continue to hold?
Yeah, that would be my sentiment if I was a holder.
Yeah. Well, some other news. This one I thought was really cool. So Nubank. If you're in the U.S., you might not be familiar with Nubank, but they're basically one of the largest fintechs in Latin America. They're kind of like the SoFi of Latin America. Basically, they're huge. They have over 100 million customers, but they announced that they're partnering with Lightspark to integrate Lightning, which is incredible. That a bank is integrating Lightning, but it also, it underscores, right, like a lot of the regulation that we've talked about, that banks in the U.S. can't necessarily do something like this because of the regulation that exists. So just another example of a lot of progress being made outside of the U.S. as a result of some of the regulations that we have.
Right. Yeah. Pushing the innovation offshore. It's better for those markets, and it'll come back to America. I know it'll swing back. It's just to our detriment. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a common theme on this show. I feel
that's right.
Is 2 steps forward, 1 steps back. But yeah, I think it's really cool, just to see that there is progress being made, and Bitcoin is a global currency after all. So, it's just really cool, even though it's not happening in the U.S. Really cool to see progress like this being made, and amazing for all of Nubank's 100 million customers.
Yeah, I'm curious how this will play into the cold storage option, because obviously Bitcoin's narrative in the beginning is that it's money, a bearer asset that you can custody yourself. But with these like exposures like we have in the US now with the ETFs, you're not holding your Bitcoin, you're holding like a claim to Bitcoin, which is totally different. So I'm curious to see, what happens outside of US, because I think for individuals, that need for self custody, that solves a lot of problems. And that is the number one use case for Bitcoin. I think anyone just putting it in their ETFs, in their portfolios, is, it's an investment for them. Its number go up, and it's a way to preserve buying power, purchasing power. But for a lot of other people in the world, it's the mechanics of self custody that is so important for them.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think, and it also kind of factors into like how Lightning works in general, because Lightning itself is kind of like an IOU, right? It doesn't settle back to Bitcoin until you've closed the channels. So yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see how, obviously if they're partnering with Lightspark is kind of one of the leading providers for enterprise Lightning solutions like this. So, they definitely know what they're doing over there, but, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, if they, have some sort of like L1 kind of treasury, similar to what, it's not BlackRock that does it, but which is the ETF provider that shares like the Bitcoin address that actually has all the ETF Bitcoin in it.
Oh, I'm not sure. It's not a Coinbase one, is it?
It may be. But either way, yeah, some of the ETF providers are actually sharing the Bitcoin wallet addresses that contain all the Bitcoin that is being held by their ETFs.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, I'm sure there will be some sort of on-chain sleuthing that's going to come about with figuring out how much, Nubank actually is holding for their clients. But when you integrate Lightning in, it's hard. It's going to be really difficult to determine that because Lightning is a little bit harder to trace, and it's certainly not on chain like L1 Bitcoin is. So just interesting.
I'm so curious to see how Lightning will play out. I think for a while it was maybe like the best solution, but ultimately I don't think it is. Well, speaking of things settling back onto L1 Bitcoin, Did you catch the spaces yesterday with Munib
I
about
didn't.
stacks?
I
Yeah.
I was I was very sick yesterday, actually.
Oh man, sorry
So
to hear that.
I was like in bed all day yesterday. So I'm feeling way better today. But yeah, unfortunately, I missed it. But maybe you could give me a TLDR.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening with half an ear because half of my attention was trying to navigate driving this old. We were camping over the last week, and we rented an old like 1993 Volkswagen, one of those Vanagons that has the
Oh,
pop
that's
up
so
tops.
cool. I love those.
The vibe was so cool, man. So we rented it from this place on Bainbridge Island outside of Seattle called Pac Westy, and they just gave us such a good experience. Anyway, I was navigating driving this old thing and trying to listen at the same time, but I did hear some reoccurring narratives, show up that Munib is so good at articulating the point that Bitcoin on its own as an L1 will not be able to scale the way it's needed for true global adoption. And we also don't want to change Bitcoin L1. Therefore, we have to have some sort of L2, a robust solution at the L2 level. And that's what Stacks is. And this open spaces was just a chance for them to discuss what Nakamoto is going to bring to Stacks, because right now Stacks being the blocks being mirrored to Bitcoin, we still don't have like the fast speeds necessary. It's still, anywhere from like, minutes to 10 minutes to an hour. Sometimes these Stacks blocks um, get the transactions are cleared. But with Nakamoto, we're going to get those faster block times. So, man, fingers crossed. What is it coming in August? Is that when Nakamoto will be released?
That is, yeah, that's the current date that they're forecasting, and I was seeing some folks that are kind of following along because one thing that's really great about I really like about kind of the Stacks ecosystem and the Stacks community in general is everyone is very open to building in the open, right? Like you can track everything that's happening
Right.
on GitHub, and it's out there, right? Anybody can go on and see, like, even Leather, right? You can go on Leather's GitHub and you can kind of get some alpha almost for what the
Right.
team is working on. So I really love that culture in our community, in our ecosystem, that everyone is sort of building in the open. But yeah, I mean, based on kind of what is publicly out there and on the GitHub, that's kind of what it looks like right now. So yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, going back
Yeah.
to kind of the Lightning thing, like I personally have been like really struggling with Lightning over the past few weeks. I finally got it fixed. But I ended up, so I had an Umbrel and I've had one for several years now. But it was on an old Raspberry Pi, and what I wanted to do was I've struggled and I've had some luck with it, but it's kind of a pain with having an ORD client set up on my computer. Because I have to deal with having like an SSD plugged into my computer all the time, and it's always running in the background, and my computer is not the
Right.
fastest thing. So I wanted
Could you,
to do
Brandon, would
that
you
on an
mind
Umbrel.
backing up? Could you back up one step, just for anyone who's not familiar, like with the projects that you have going on? Just give us one little quick intro to put us all up to speed on what you're working on.
Yeah, so well, it all kind of started when Runes kicked off, and some of the alpha. Obviously, there's a lot of really great, providers that you can connect Leather to, right? Like Ordinals Bot and Luminex and all these, great services that are out there. But I wanted to take it as an opportunity to set up Ord, which is sort of the base Ordinals client that also supports Runes. And in order to set up Ord, there's a lot of steps that are involved. You need to have your own Bitcoin node, and you need to have a fully synced, fully indexed, unpruned Bitcoin node. So that alone takes up about like 700 gigs of space.
Wow.
And then you need to index Ord, and that process can be pretty memory and CPU intensive, because depending on what you're indexing, you need to basically, Ord is looking at every single transaction. It's ordering every single Satoshi on the network and figuring out where things are going and where things are moving. So that the database of Ord also takes up another, I think it's around 160 gigabytes. and every new Bitcoin block, right, it's needing to perform more calculations and everything in order to figure out who owns what sat.
Yeah.
And I've done some kind of experimenting on ordinals, not necessarily with art because I'm not like the most artistic person, but I've done some things with I love the idea, right, of being able to inscribe something and it lives on Bitcoin forever, and you don't only have to pay for it once, and
Yeah.
that concept is really cool. So I've created like basically I have a couple versions now, but I created like a website essentially that is all fully inscribed, and it allows you to update the site by inscribing new files. I figured out a way to do that because normally when you inscribe something, it's just a static inscription and you can't change it, and it's immutable, which is great. That's what we love, about Bitcoin and about ordinals.
Yeah.
But for certain properties, you may want to be able to update things. So right now I have it's brandonmarshall.net. You can go there. It redirects to ordinals.com/ a really long inscription ID, and that is a fully inscribed website, which is really cool. But in order to do that, in order to for me to be able to update certain elements of the site, I need to be able to inscribe on certain satoshis. And in order to do that, you need to have a fully indexed version of Ord, which is like super memory intensive because it's indexing the sats. So I wanted to basically take all of that, processing that my computer was doing, that was slowing down my computer, and I wanted to move it somewhere else. And I was like, oh, you can install an Ordinals client on Umbrel and do that. So I ended up basically I needed to get a new Umbrel because my Raspberry Pi was kind of old and it just wasn't powerful enough to do that anymore. So bought a new Umbrel and I set that up, and the migration process was fairly smooth. But when I was going to migrate my Lightning channels over, it ended up not just migrating them like you would think. Like you would think that you would just put in a private key and it would just import and be good to go.
Yeah.
But by migrating them, it actually prompted all the channels that I had open to just close for no real reason, which really sucked because those are just like random fees that I am having to pay.
Yeah.
But all of the fees, like these channels were set up years ago at this point, multiple years ago. So the fees that were basically when you set up a new channel, the fees to close the channel are kind of baked in when you set up the channel. So, when you look at a couple of years ago, Bitcoin fees were obviously a lot lower than they are now.
Right.
So a lot of these fees, so all my channel closes were all with like 5 sats per VByte.
Wow.
Super low, right? Obviously, those aren't going to clear, and the process for like increasing those fees is extremely convoluted and stupid. So you talk, we hear a lot, right, about like how annoying it is to manage your channels, and you have to rebalance things sometimes. So yeah, I definitely felt that. I was fortunately able to finally get it fixed. There's a utility that Lightning Labs makes called Chan Tools, and you have to run this thing in your terminal and run Chan Tools. And I was eventually able to get it figured out, but it literally took me like almost 2 weeks to finally get it figured out. So huge headache.
Man, I thought like managing UTXOs with Sparrow Wallet was complex, but that sounds like next level challenge.
Yeah, but now, I still need to open up channels. Right now, I have like a Lightning node that has no connections because I've just been frustrated to jump back into it. But I do want to open up a channel because it is nice to have the ability to transact over Lightning, especially with Bitcoin Nashville coming up. I'm sure I'll have a couple opportunities to use it. But now I have a fully synced Ordinals node that is on my Umbrel, and I have a Lightning node that is on my Umbrel, fully synced and ready to go, and I can access my Umbrel from anywhere. So I can be, traveling. I can be on an airplane, and I can VPN into my Umbrel node, and I can access ordinals, and I can access, Lightning, and I can do all that stuff wherever I go now. So I mean, this is just a long commercial for Umbrel, I guess. Not sponsored, but
Yeah.
just the fact that I can do all that is really, really cool. And I don't have to have it be running on my computer anymore. I can just access it wherever I go. So yeah, I'm excited to now have that set up, and yeah, it's exciting.
That's so cool, man. What about, okay, so when you are making updates to your website, are you reinscribing over the same SAT?
Kind of, yeah. That's basically what I'm doing. So uh, how it sort of works is I have like a blog dot. I have some, basically I inscribed some like random kind of text files as children of, like the Brandon.btc was the, or BrandonMarshall.btc was the text that I have inscribed. So I
Yeah.
have all these sort of children, and then the children's children are, in the children's children are like, yeah, the kind of elements. So essentially what it's doing, it's using a specific SAT endpoint that is basically saying, hey, look at the most recent inscription that's inscribed on this particular SAT and display that. So
Wow.
that's
Nice.
that's kind of the magic is, so I can inscribe a new file onto the same SAT, and it'll basically, the way that the code works is it's looking for that latest file, and it's just displaying that. So yeah, that's the main thing. If that specific SAT endpoint did not work, then yeah, I wouldn't be able to do this, and I wouldn't be able to have sort of an updatable website on ordinals.
Wow. So before we get back to all the Bitcoin news, what do you, in your mind, what do you think are the best use cases for, building this kind of website that can be completely on chain and immutable on the Bitcoin blockchain?
I mean, there's been some other. It's a little bit easier now to kind of create a website without having to pay for hosting. I think that the thing that inspired me to start doing it was really, I just hate having to pay a monthly fee to host a
Mm.
website that
Hmm.
I'm not, you know, like I'm not a business, right? I just want to have like a little web presence and not have to pay a monthly fee for that.
Yeah.
So just the fact that I can, I'm still paying for the domain, but just the fact that I can have a website that I only have to pay once to inscribe, and it lives there forever. That was kind of what first attracted me to wanting to inscribe a website onto Bitcoin. But there are a lot of other, options to do this. I mean, I inscribed, or I published a lot of this stuff on GitHub. So if somebody else wants to basically do this exact thing, they totally could. But there's other apps on Stacks, like there's Siegel, that allows you to kind of have a blog published on Stacks and on Bitcoin. So there are other
Yeah.
providers that do allow you to do some of this stuff in a little bit of a more easy way. But I just wanted to try to do it in a self-sovereign, as much as I can, way as possible, I guess.
That's so cool, man. I really, hats off to you. The brain power going into it and just proving that it can be done. And you were the first person to do it. So very cool, man. Thanks for checking in on that and giving us like the 40,000 foot view of what you're doing with that. That's cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said it on the show before, right? But I am not a developer at all. I do not consider myself a developer or an engineer or anything like that. So, if it's really just I had an idea, and I used a lot of Chat GPT to help me with the coding of it and everything like that. So,
Nice.
anybody can build on Bitcoin, I think, is just the main takeaway here. So yeah, that's
Nice.
my encouragement for the listeners is, if you have an idea, like, go for it. Nobody's stopping you.
Yeah. All right. Should we jump back to some news items with the Supreme Court?
Yeah. So this one is really interesting because it's when you look at it, for those that don't know. So basically there was this court case with Chevron, and I think I remember reading about this a few months ago. Kind of what led to this case happening was it was related to like commercial fishermen,
Hmm.
and it was basically the National Marine Fisheries Service, and it was between the National Marine Fisheries Service and commercial fishing companies.
Hmm.
And basically, they had imposed a rule that required the owners of the vessels in the Atlantic. I'm reading it here. Owners of vessels in the Atlantic herring fishery to pay for monitors who would board their vessels to monitor the catch. So it's sort of like an oversight thing, right? They were sort of required to pay for this service. But the fishermen argued that the law did not specifically authorize the agency to impose the cost of that
Hmm.
service onto them, and they won essentially. So the Supreme Court, ended this Chevron deference. And what does that mean for Bitcoin? Because it isn't immediately clear, I guess, when you're just talking
Yeah.
about fish.
Right.
What it basically means is that these government agencies ultimately cannot legally impose these types of restrictions. And when you think of like the SEC, right, leading by enforcement, regulating by enforcement, it really just sets a little bit of or not a little bit, a big precedent for how much authority the SEC may ultimately have against Bitcoin and against crypto. That they can't necessarily enforce, some of these things. Yeah, so it is good for Bitcoin, even though it has to deal with fish.
Nice. Yeah, everything is connected, isn't it?
It certainly is. I mean, that was sort of the meme of the name of this show, right? Is good for Bitcoin, because it's always been a meme, for years, right? That everything, like whatever news event would happen, and then somebody would in the comments, they'd be like, "Oh, this is good for Bitcoin," right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
that it is
along
good for
with
Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that along with Bitcoin fixes this.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone wants to say Bitcoin fixes everything. It really doesn't, but case in point, it's everything can be like related to Bitcoin in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it just money permeates almost all things, right? Everything ties back to money and energy, and yeah, Bitcoin is part of that. But um
Transparency too. And
absolutely.
what blockchain means for transparency
Yeah.
is a big takeaway too.
Yeah. Well,
What else?
the final story, I think this was actually just breaking just a couple hours ago, and this is not, I would say, not good for Bitcoin. This is unfortunate news.
Yeah.
But the SEC has sued Consensus, specifically over MetaMask, alleging that they are an unregistered securities broker through their platform. And if you just look at the headline, you would think that the SEC is taking a stance against all crypto wallets in general, which isn't necessarily the case. Um, what they're specifically alleging is more on the swaps and the stacking, or not stacking, the staking side of things with MetaMask. So they offer, I guess, what the SEC is arguing as some centralized services through their swaps and their staking
Hmm.
services that are built into MetaMask, that they're alleging basically are unregistered securities. So again, a huge bummer. I don't know. It's just a bummer.
Yeah, but this is also what we see the SEC doing all the time. And until we see some regime change, we're going to see more of this. But other than this story, we're seeing a lot more. Coinbase is now in another lawsuit. They're suing the SEC and the FDIC as well, and we're seeing this resurgence and all of these forces from the crypto industry. They're starting to get organized. They're well funded. They punch above their weight, and they're starting to understand, how laws, how things become regulated in the states, and how they can have an effect. And so it's through we talked about this last week, like through the judicial system, we are finally starting to make headway so that crypto and Bitcoin can have a bright future in America.
Yeah, and that's actually, it goes back to this ruling today with the Supreme Court ending the Chevron case. That's really what it's doing, is it's putting the responsibility back into the judicial system, and away from just a government body that decides these laws. So yeah, again, 2 step forward, 1 step back. We'll see how this plays out. But yeah.
In Bitcoin adjacent news, did you see that Julian Assange is now released? Now he's a free man.
Yeah, that was a surprising news story. Definitely. But I mean, good for him. He has a family. So the fact that he's, reunited with his family is obviously a good thing. I think I saw that he was going back to Australia. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, good for him. I mean, that's certainly good news. We'll see, what else happens this year in terms of, pardoning Ross Ulbright. That's kind of like the last kind of big, I think one of the last sort of big prominent people that has been, what many Bitcoiners would argue is kind of unfairly charged for certain things. So it'd be interesting to see what plays out there as well. But yeah, another step in the right direction.
That reminds me with Ross Ulbricht. Trump said that the first thing that he would do on day one is pardon him, right? But did we hear in last night's debate? By the way, I can't believe we haven't talked about last night's debate at all so far. Did we hear crypto or Bitcoin mentioned once? No,
we did not.
I think like 60% of people were betting on crypto being brought up, and who knows why? A debate. There's so much that needs to happen in a debate, but I think a lot of people in our little echo chamber here on Twitter, on X, I'm still trying to train myself to say, we're expecting it to come up because they have heard Trump clarify his point, and he's courting Bitcoiners. But why? Because he knows that it's going to get him votes, but maybe not so much so that it was worth him bringing up at last night's debate. So who knows if, is this because it wasn't important enough to bring up? Is it because he's just pandering to get us votes and saying it in the right rooms and at the right events? I'm not sure. Maybe we'll see it on the next one. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly it certainly does seem like he's integrated crypto and more specifically Bitcoin into his campaign a lot more lately, which we've definitely talked about on the show.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like some of that probably just has to do with the questions of the moderators. Like, I mean, I guess you could integrate, Bitcoin into like many questions potentially, especially there was like some questions on inflation, and that would have been probably a good opportunity to bring it up there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they weren't specifically asked about it. That would have been so amazing though. If like, I would love to have heard like Biden's answer to something Bitcoin related, a question like that, just to see, where he kind of stands on it. Because I think we already know kind of where Trump stands, at least.
Yeah. Well, and judging by what was it, the SAB veto from Biden a few weeks ago.
Yep.
That shows us where he stands as well.
Yeah, the writing's definitely on the wall there. But it just would have been interesting to hear it directly from him versus, his aides and not directly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, every politician they'll need to have a position on crypto because the young voters, it's going to be so important for them.
Yeah, I mean, Shaylee's been on here before and has talked about it, right? Over 50 million Coinbase users alone in the US. So there is a huge, a huge constituency of people that are, have a vested interest in crypto being a thing here in the US. So definitely.
It's so funny that people can feel so bearish when Bitcoin is sitting at, what's it at right now? 61?
We're at 60.6 right now.
Okay. I mean, zooming out, that's really high.
It is.
So it's funny how like sentiment changes because if I think back to what was it 14 months ago for the Bitcoin Miami conference, sentiment was like so low, and honestly, like that conference, it was just like kind of depressing. But what did we see there? We saw Vivek Ramaswamy and RFK Jr.
Yep.
both announced that they, were running for president and that they would be accepting Bitcoin as donations. And I think that was a really important catalyst and first step. And if not for that, we probably wouldn't see Trump and other politicians being forced to have a position on Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting too. I think it's still a rumor at this point. It hasn't been officially announced, but a lot of people were speculating that Vivek may end up being the vice president, or Trump's vice president.
Yeah,
which
I
would
think,
certainly be. I mean, he's so pro crypto that it's crazy. So that would be pretty good for Bitcoin.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I have no idea what to say. I know this is not a political show, but I'm just kind of disillusioned by. I think a lot of people are really disillusioned by politics right now, and what we experienced in the debates last night. It was just not very encouraging.
Yeah, we need some younger candidates. I wish that we weren't having to vote for like two. It's it's yeah, it's just not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, having even enabling more people on stage. Like I know a lot of people in the Twitter community, in the X Bitcoin community, they are very pro RFK Jr. And we should probably have, more of an open conversation and an open debate where we get to hear multiple voices.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't check it, or I didn't listen to it because I was watching the actual debate, but I saw that RFK was sort of doing like he was like sort of doing his own debate, like based on
Mm,
the questions that they were asking, and he was like streaming that live on X last night. I
nice.
need to go back and listen to that because yeah, I'd be curious to hear him because he is I think a good speaker, but yeah, it is sort of unfortunate that it seems like especially like the independent candidates, seem to get censored a little bit on kind of mainstream media.
Yeah. It is interesting, though. I mean, even though it seems like such a long shot for anyone except Biden or Trump to be the next president, um, someone like RFK, these independents who run, they still like can pull levers and they can still impact what discussion happens for like the quote unquote like the biggest players, right? So he's still having an impact.
Yeah, it's certainly it's certainly introducing certain conversations for everybody to have answers for, especially with Bitcoin. I think to your point, I think if people like RFK and Vivek did not come out so strongly, in support of Bitcoin, it probably would be a different story in terms of like Trump supporting it so heavily. So they definitely kind of started that conversation in a lot of ways. Um, yeah.
Right. Well, I think that's our biggest news events that we wanted to hit on.
I think those are the biggest news events. I wanted to tease that we're gonna have a pretty big announcement next week. So I'm just gonna leave it at that because I'm not allowed to say more. But definitely stay tuned for next week. It's gonna be a big week, so very excited for that.
Nice.
We also want to give another congratulations to Rena, who is our COO officially now. We announced that, and very very happy for Rena.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a good. Rena was with Binance before this, building up the Binance US platform, and then she's been just crushing it with trust machines and building out with Leather. So it makes sense. She's been doing fantastic work and will continue to do so.
Yeah, I mean Rena, I've always sort of thought as Rena as our COO anyway. It just kind of feels like
Yeah,
that's what she's been doing already.
nice.
I think for social brevity's sake, I'm happy that I can just refer to her now as COO instead of having to like spell out her long title, which she had before. So I can talk about Rena more often on social now, and I can fit fit her title in
Nice.
to social posts on Twitter. So that's a win for me.
Yep.
But yeah, congratulations again to Rena. Yeah, we love Rena.
And looking forward to next week. Last week we had to take off for Leather Lounge. I'm so glad I did not schedule a call because I was out in the middle of nowhere with no cell phone service. So I was entertaining the idea of like plugging in my adapter to the car
Oh my
and being
gosh.
able to do this like in a remote, but there was just literally no cell phone service where we were. So yeah, we were taking this week off. Next week we're going to start our summer series, and it looks like we're going to do a double header with Christopher Perceptions from No Code Clarity and Dan Trevino from Boom Wallet, two absolute Stacks OGs who have been building for a long time. So we're going to do a double header and feature two fantastic Stacks community builders next week. Probably going to stick with the same timing. Hero, I'm going to consult with you on if we might want to adjust the time, but probably going to be same usual Leather Lounge time, Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I feel like I've had to miss the past few ones because it's just been a busy few weeks getting prepped for just announcements. I guess I'll just be vague. It's just been a busy few weeks, so looking forward to joining next week. And yeah, Christopher I know has been on the show before. And I'm not sure if Dan has been on the show, but definitely both of them are super OGs. So really, really excited to hear from both of them on what they're building.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you think by Wednesday we'll be able to talk about the new announcements? Will that work out timing wise?
I think so. We'll see.
All right. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Well, I think that wraps it up for this week. So super appreciative to everybody for tuning in today. And new time now again. So we're going to be doing Good for Bitcoin every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So we're not overlapping with some other spaces that are happening in our ecosystem. So thanks, Hero, for for bearing with us. Don't want to overlap with D Grants. Yeah, looking forward to next week. It's going to be a big week. So yeah, I'm excited. And thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.